Hi Greedy 3Ders, I'm going to be making today my favourite print ever. This Lara Croft 3D print has been commissioned by a very good friend of mine, and he's asked me, and I feel very privileged, to paint it up for him, print it out and just to see what it looks like. And it looks amazing. What a beautiful, beautiful print. Good news for you guys is you can get this print, and even better news for you guys, you can get 25% off just for mentioning Greedy 3D. Do you want to see how I made it? Stay tuned. So this wonderful Lara Croft commissioned piece has been printed on my GK2, and I've used some Jam J water washable resin. I've printed it at 100% and it has come out beautifully. I've used a 3.5 second exposure time, and that was the sweet spot with this stuff, and it's come out beautifully. No failures, absolutely perfect. I've printed the rest of the stuff, the base and some of the little door thing that floats on my K1, also using some Jam J high speed PLA, and everything has come out wonderfully on the K1, printing at 250 millimeters per second. Now once everything's done and dusted, I'm going to do some sanding. It is really imperative on this model that you get rid of the divots and the nooks and the bits of the bobs that you don't want to see, because this is a lot of skin tone, and if you don't do this and clean it afterwards using quite a firm brush, you're going to see it in the paint job and it will ruin your model. So make sure you sand everything down. Always good advice on any of your models. And once everything is sanded down and it's all nice and smooth, I'm gluing things together with some super glue and some activator. You really do need some activator, otherwise you're going to be standing holding things together like a dork for ages. This activator does it immediately. To fill the gap in the, it looks like a door of some kind, I'm using a precision bottle and a little bit of resin, and I'm just going to do some resin welding to cover that gap up. This is a great way of sealing your gaps, and as you know, I've done a video all about this. Just check out my library and you will see it. But all you need to do, precision bottle, pop a little bit in there, use a UV light, and it will seal the deal. It will cover all the little gaps and all the little holes and all the little crevices that you need, and that's what it looks like. Now we've got to do a little bit of work of that, of course we have. So I'm going to use a piece of rough sandpaper to start with, and then I'm going down to about a 400 grit just to smooth all that out. I don't want to take any of the detail off the door. Now there's still going to be a little bit of a join there, you'll see that, but you certainly won't see it in any level. And I'm using some of this white paint to start to prime things. This is the Citadel paint. I always use this. It's either the black or the white. It's expensive stuff, but it dries really, really quickly and it looks amazing once it's dried. It's my favourite primer of all time. I also use this paint here, and I'm going to do this. I used to use this as a primer, but on this occasion, for this, I'm using this to make the wetsuit. And this is a matte finish, but it gives a little bit of a shiny, and look at that, that looks like a wetsuit. Now I did get my Army Painter Ultramarine Blue primer out. It's been in there a while and I don't know what's gone on with this, but it's leaking everywhere. I tried taking the lid off and tried to see if I could see what was going on, but it went all over the floor more than it went on the model. But this is a lovely colour, a base colour for the sea, Ultramarine Blue by the Army Painter. Now Crystal Blue, again, this is an Army Painter paint, just to highlight some of that ocean, and don't forget those little bits that are sticking up there are also ocean, so we need to give those a little bit of colour. And I want to bring it up another notch with some Ionic Blue, and that will give me the base colour for the sea, for the ocean itself. Now don't worry, we're going to be doing some magic on that ocean. Now for the door, I'm going to take some oak brown and I'm going to pop it in my airbrush, and I'm going to put it right across that door. As I say, you can see a little bit of a join in the middle. I'm not too fussed about that because this is something that's floating at sea. I'm really not bothered. It will look marvellous, and it does. This brown just sets it off with a little bit of wood colour from Vallejo on the top, just to give it an added je ne sais quoi, if you will, just to add to that wood effect. We'll do a little bit more on this at the end, but that is the airbrushing stage of this door done and dusted. And that's what it looks like when it's all finished. Now for the skin, I'm doing some Army Painter Triad colours, and I'm going to start off with the Nomad Flesh, and I've given this one obviously the base colour of white, and I'm going to cover this Nomad Flesh right the way across this model, all over, and again all over her legs. Now remember what we said, no little bits of sanding paper left, no little nibblets, no little bits there. Make sure it is a clean print. On something like skin, you need it to be absolutely clean, so all that prep you're going to do pre-painting is really important. And I'm just giving the hand that's attached to the gun, the harpoon, a little bit of a coat too. Now upper layer to barbarian flesh, and I'm going to hit it from the top down, and that's just going to add a little bit of a lighter colour coming from the top down. I'm going to give it a little bit of a coat underneath as well. Again, all over. Think of the position that your model is going to be in and work from the top down on it to highlight the areas where the sun would naturally catch it. And once I've got this layer on, I'm going to go up to the highest layer of wildling flesh, and I'm going to do exactly the same, and I'm going to touch it from the top down in exactly the same manner. And that's the spraying of the flesh tones done and dusted. Now make sure you let it dry and seal it with some Rust-Oleum clear. That's really important. Here is everything ready to go. Everything on my desk, things are drying, and I'm ready for my next stage. Now to make the water effect, I'm using this silicone sealant. This is clear silicone sealant, the stuff you see around sinks and around cookers, and I'm just going to squirt it into a cup, and I'm going to dilute it down just a little bit with some IPA. I need to make it a little bit more runnier. Now I don't know the exact consistency, I just poured it till it just went above the top of the silicone, but I think there was a bit too much in there, so I poured a bit out, and I just stirred and stirred and stirred and stirred. Keep stirring and you will eventually see that it thins out a little bit. And once it's thinned out to a more usable consistency, just get a little bit of wood and splatter it on there. Get it all the way across. It stinks a little bit, this stuff, but don't worry, it dries and it doesn't smell when it dries. But get it on there, pat it down, and the more you play with it and the more you push it down, especially while it's sodden and wet like this, you get some little sort of profiles and ripples and little wave effects. It's absolutely lovely. And as it dries and as it gets drier and drier and thicker, you can start to add some texture into it, you can start to add some waves into it, you can start to get it to move around and put it to where you want it. It's a real easy, simple way to get your wave and your sea effects. And don't forget that where that little door sits, there are some sea sticking through, some in the gaps, so get some in there as well. Now you can see that I've put a lot on the top of the door, too much really, so I just took a little bit of tissue and I wiped it over, but I've left it on there wet because I want it to look wet. And it's as it's drying, and it really is drying quite quickly, I'm folding in some waves and I'm lifting it and I'm folding it on himself just to make everything look sea-like, and I am chuffed with that. Those colours, that sealant, everything looks really wonderful. It looks like water. This is the easiest way that I've seen to do water. If you've got another way of doing it, tell me how you do it. Let me know in the description how you do water effects. But I've seen this done a couple of times. I'm going to be using this way, the way forward, and that is the sea effect. And I'm blown away how wonderful that looks. And it hasn't taken long. It's took about 10-15 minutes to get it to this level, and I had the stuff lying around, so it's actually not cost me a penny to do it. Brilliant. And again, that's what it looks like on the wood. It's got that wet glistening effect, and that's just what I'm after for the base of this Lara Croft model. Now we're going on to the brush stages now, and I'm going to use this wash. This is a Vallejo wash that I made myself with just some red paint, 25% paint to 75% water, and I'm just going to splodge it across her face. Get a brush and meld it all in there. I'm going to smooth it all around, and I'm going to push it all into the paint of the skin. Don't leave it on, it's got to come off, so get yourself a little bit of a kitchen roll and dab it all off to get it. You don't want to leave pools, you don't want to leave big splodges of red anywhere. I might just leave a little bit of red down there in her bosom, but just to see a little bit of colour down there, but exactly the same on the legs, all the way across. Don't be afraid of washes, get it on there, but don't leave it on there, don't let it dry. Get your kitchen towel and whip it off. If you want to do a couple of coats of the red, that's absolutely fine. If you think it's not red enough for you, put a couple of coats on there, but again, we don't want to make her look like she's a lobster, okay? So not too much red, do it until your ancestors tell you to stop. And that's what she looks like, with a little bit of red on there. Just a little bit of colour is all you needed. We're going to contrast that now with exactly the same process, but this time using some Vallejo yellow with 75% water to 25% paint, and I'm just going to wash that all on her and smudge it in again, exactly the same process as you've seen me doing with the red. Once it's on there, get your cloth and wipe it off. Again, make sure you get it all the way off. Same again on the legs. Now once you've done this, if you think it looks a bit yellow, put some more red on. It's up to you. Use your artistic license to get the colour that you want. And what I'm going to do right at the end is take this basic skin tone via Vallejo on a great big thick brush, and I'm going to dry brush some of the highlighted areas. I'm just going to add that final lighter look and to her skin tones, not only on her legs but also just across the face. A really light dry brushing. I'm not overdoing it, and this is what the skin tone looks like now. I'm happy with that skin tone. I think it's going to look lovely compared to the black that's also going to go on it, and I'm really chuffed. Now taking this reddish flesh, I'm going to paint her lips. Now you can already see that I've painted the eyes black. I'm not going to go into vast detail how I do faces. I do faces exactly the same way, and check out my other videos and you will see lots and lots of faces painted in exactly the same way. Ivory I'm going to use for the whites of the eyes, and I'm just going to paint them in, leaving a black outline. I'm going to tidy that black outline up a little bit with a little bit of skin colour just to make it look not quite so rough. Paint in some of those irises in black, and then I am going to do a little bit of red on the bottom of her eyes, as you can see there, just to add a bit of flesh in before I put some light brown in and some pupils. Paint the eyebrows on, a little bit of colour above the eyes, and she is done and dusted. Leather brown for the hair on a really fine brush, and take your time with this. You do not want to be daubing it all across your skin tones, but don't forget that I've sealed now those skin tones with some Rust-Oleum clear, and that's really important, because if you do get some on, and off camera I managed to just get a little bit of an earbud with a little bit of water on, and it wipes straight off with a little bit of a rubbing and a dubbing. So take your time with the little brush, get all the edges done and dusted first, and then you can move on to a bigger brush and get the hair on. So now I'm just taking some black to paint the bottom of her costume, and oh, this was a nerve-wracking bit. I really didn't want to be getting black all over my skin tones, and even though it's protected, I still didn't want to get it all on there. So a flat brush, a really firm pointy brush, and I took my time and I got the black all the way across until it was all done, and I used a very fine brush to touch up the very edges until everything was on there, and I was chuffed with just how that had come out, and I hadn't got any on my skin tone, so phew, that was a bit close. Right, next I took a lot of masking tape. She's got some yellow stripes down her arm, so I masked off all the areas that I wanted to protect, and then I took it across to my airbrush and I gave her some demonic yellow all the way on the bits of her swimming costume that are yellow. And once that was done and I took all the masking tape off, I just took a bit of black and I touched up some of the really finer edges where it's just overspilled a little bit. But on the whole, the masking tape has done a lovely job and give me some nice smooth edges. Hardened leather now, which is a speed paint from Army Painter. This is version 1, and I'm just going to go over that brown hair with this. I love speed paints. I love the version 1 speed paints, especially for hair. It gives a wonderful contrast over leather brown for a light dark brown hair. Lovely. It gives dark bits in the recesses, and it's lighter on the outside. We'll do a little bit more on the hair later, but don't forget the ponytail too. Exactly the same process for that. Now for the scuba tank, I'm just showing you the end result here. Painted it in silver, painted the straps in black, a little bit of a metallic-y colour here and there, and I used a little bit of ink just to fill in some of the gaps. And for her gun, for a harpoon, painted it as for the profile pictures that I saw on the internet. Again, just adding a little bit of ink into the recesses, and she's got some little guns as well. Just some grey on them and a bit of dry brushing, and that was done. Gloss varnish into her eyes just to make them ping and pop, and she's virtually done. I mean, you can see, the more observant of you will see that I've done a little bit of yellow around the neckline as well. But I'm just going to move on to her hair now, and I've glued it together. I'm taking some of this light brown and I'm just going to dry brush that last shade onto her hair. So I've got lights, mediums and darks. Really chuffed. Now I've got some white paint here on a big bristled brush, and I'm just going to dab this on to make it look like the sea effects. I did a bit there, I didn't want, so I just rubbed it off and rubbed it down a bit, but just dab it on. Again, there's no rocket science to this. Do as much or as little as you feel you need to do, and just dab it onto the bits where the waves are at their highest point, and that's going to be the base done. That's the sea effect done. I'm moving on to some of this UV resin just to add some drips on her. I'm just going to put it around where her leg is coming out of the sea, and I'm going to use my finger to just push it up her leg a little bit to make it look damp and wet, and then I'm going to pop a bit more on and use my UV torch to just seal everything. It's really easy, this stuff, and it just looks wet and glistening. I'm also going to do the same around the hand and the gun there where the hand is holding it. As you can see, some drips, and I'm going to put a bit on her knee also where she's got out of the water, and on her foot where those areas would naturally be pooling some water down, and of course where she's coming out of the water, that is the wet look I'm after. She is pretty much done and dusted. Let's have a final look at Lara Croft. So there we go, there is the making of Lara Croft. You won't find this on Etsy, you won't find this anywhere. This is a brand new sculpt commissioned by a really good friend of mine. And as I said at the start, if you want a copy of this print, it'll be in the description where you can get it from. Mention Greedy 3D and you will get 25% off. 25% off, that's fantastic. So I hope you've enjoyed today, guys. And if you want to support the channel, there's lots of ways you can do that. Please, please subscribe to the channel. Please, 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 please think about joining the Patreon. It is also free. You don't need to pay if you don't want to, or if you want to contribute, which will help me a little bit. There are lots of different tiers, but if you don't want to pay anything, it's free to join. Just join the Greedy 3D gang. If you want to buy anything from the description, you'll see it down below. A little bit will kick back as an Amazon affiliate link, and that really just helps me carry on. If you do support the channel, thank you. Thank you to my existing Patreons. Thank you, guys. Without you guys, things would be a darn sight harder. And again, if you want to get this print, mention Greedy 3D. All the details are below, 25% off, and you too can own this wonderful Lara Croft 3D print. I'll see you next time.